Hi, this is Jarrett.
And this is Eli.
This is Sports Jabber with the Lefties.
And today we're going to be talking about Joey Bosa's contract extension. Joey Bosa inked a 5-year, $135 million contract extension. This ties him to LA for the next 6 years because it's a 5-year extension plus the year he's still on contract for. This is a crazy amount of money for an edge. Absolutely crazy. This is the average, $27 million a year. That's averaging out. Because there's some years they'll be higher, some years will be less. But averaging out $27 million. Let's just use that as an example. That is quarterback money. When you have a good quarterback, you lock him up. Because a good quarterback will change that team. A good quarterback turns a average team, a below average team, to a playoff team. An edge, is it nice to have an edge? Yes. Is it a premium position? Yes. Does it win you games? No. This is the analogy that I like to use with Aaron Donald and the Rams. Aaron Donald is one of the most dominant pass rushers in NFL history through his entire career with the Rams. Yet, the Rams have made the playoffs twice since he came into the league. In 2013, I believe it was. And now, in the first year, they just lost in the wild card round. They barely made the playoffs. The second year, they went to the Super Bowl. That year, they went 13-3, not because Aaron Donald, even though he was dominant, it's because Jared Goff had a very hot season under Sean McVay.
Yes. So, once again, I've told you guys many times, I'm only a big fan of paying quarterbacks large amount of money. I totally agree with you. And, well, I think there are two different ways to look at this. And I'm sure a lot of people, when people start listening to our podcast, they're going to be like, well, no, he's worth the money. And here's how I try to look at it. So he's making he's going to make $27 million a year.
On average.
So there are two different things. So from an owner's point of view, I get the contract. From a fan point of view, as far as a great player, I get the contract. If your goal as a fan is to want to win a Super Bowl, I don't get the contract. So here's the problem. So let's say $27 million. So the cap is going to be, let's say roughly $200 million.
Yes.
$200 million. So that's 27. So that's about 13% of your total cap space is going to one player. And so here's what I look at. So as a fan, so let's use an analogy. Let's say, he's great. What does he have? He averages about 11 sacks, 11 and a half to 12 sacks.
Let me look up his stats real quick. Well, you can keep talking.
And total combined, he's about 70 between, what's his stats here?
Yeah, last year he had 11 and a half sacks. The year before he got injured, he only had 5.5 sacks. The year before he had 12 and a half sacks. The year before he had 10 and a half sacks. So he's a good edge.
Yes, and there's tackles too, right?
Yeah.
So he averages,
I'm just saying sacks.
Sacks, but if you average like 70 tackles. So, so let's take this guy. Let's say he's making $27 million, okay? And let's do a line. Let's say we have 2 defensive ends and a tackle. And you have him for $27 million. And let's use $30 million as a rough for those 3 guys. So the other 2 players are going to be $1 million players, right? So let's say $30 million. So you can have one really amazing defensive end, right, for $27 million, and you're going to have 2 players who are making $1 million each, which are probably, I would say, not your top end. You're very, very low end. Let's say
defensive tackles and edges.
Yes. So now you're going to, even though you're very, very strong on one side of the line, right? Your nose tackle, your left defensive end or your right defensive, it's going to be very, very, very weak. So he can only do so much on one side, but you're basically having a massive hole on the other from the middle and the other side. Now let's play devil's advocate. Let's say we get 3 decent players. 3 guys who make $10 million each, which I would say would be a pretty average to higher quality defensive end, right? A higher quality. So now you have three guys. Okay, each one is not as good as Joey Bosa. So let's say they give you 30 to 40 tackles. Let's say they give you 6 or 7, sacks. So not as good, but good quality player. What would you rather have? Would you rather have 3 really good across the line, makes it harder to pass the ball, to run the ball? Or would you have that one amazing guy at the end and 2 weaker points, really weaker points? So that's a problem I have when you take these guys and you pay them these 10 to 13% contracts. Yes, that's by far great defensive end. I'm not arguing that. And great player, seems like a good guy. But there's no way you're going to tell me that a team with 3 high-quality players in one position is weaker than a team with 2 players who are really weak and 1 player who is better than all 3, but he's only one aspect of the whole team. As I always say, football is many, many players. So it just doesn't work when you just put all your apples in 2 or 3 players, because you're going to have to pay a quarterback too eventually. And as you were saying, exactly, how many times have a defensive end?
Like none.
None. It just doesn't work like that. There's only so many plays that they disrupt. Now, the devil's advocate is also what we don't think about as an owner. So as an owner point of view, and I don't know how much they make on shirts and jerseys and everything else that we don't think of as fans. But so he makes $27 million, but how much does he bring in with all that other stuff that you don't see as a fan, right? Our goal is we watch football and as a fan, we want them to win the Super Bowl. But what you don't see is the owners, this is a business and their job is to make money. So let's say they bring $50 million worth of merchandise with this player. And so even though they're paying him $27 million a year, and they say, okay, we might not win the Super Bowl, but we're making a ton of money. Whereas you have an average guy who's not going to sell jerseys. And so they're not making, 40 or 50 million worth of people going to the stadiums to see this one player. You just have these 3 really good players, but, I don't think people are going to be running to the stadium to watch him play, where Joey Bosa is going to get that fanfare. So just to say it, so I think they're 2 different things. So as an owner's point of view, I get it. They're like, well, listen, this guy, like when you see a player that you like, you buy, right?
You buy the jersey, you watch the games, you pay attention to that player.
Exactly.
It brings attention to that team.
It brings attention to that team. So as an owner's point of view, I get it. And as a fan point of view for an individual player, I get it. But if you told me as a fan, all you want is a Super Bowl, that's your goal. Well, then I disagree with paying these high contracts for these players, because you just can't, you have how many players? 52, is it?
53 on the roster.
Okay,
53 maximum.
53 maximum. You got to pay 53 guys. If one guy owns 13% of the contract salary, right, and you're going to have to pay the quarterback, and if you have a decent quarterback, that's going to be another 10 or 15%. You can have 2 players making what, 25% of the salary. You got, it has to be divided to everybody else. And you have to pay the starters a decent amount of money. Forget about all the backups. So that's my point of view with these contracts. And I know a lot of people disagree with me and say, oh, he's worth every penny. And yes, he's worth every penny. And for an owner, I get that he's worth every penny, right? That's what people are going to tell me. He's worth every penny. And I say, you're right. He is worth every penny. So I'm not going to argue there. I'm saying that if I was a fan of that football team and I want that football team to win a Super Bowl, then I am not a big fan of this contract for a player on the team that I would own as a fan that I'm rooting for.
Well, an average home game makes around $15 million for the team. So think of it, just in 2 home games, you basically make his entire salary. So it's not that much money for the owner. Well, and if he brings people, he's making more money on the
Well, they're making more than this. I mean, the salary cap is just for us, for the fans to keep it.
On the fan, yes.
To make it right. The owners are making a ton more money, right? They're making a lot more money. It allows to keep all teams equal, unlike where baseball, where the Yankees can just, buy everybody out. So it's not as fair. That's the point of the salary cap. And I love the salary cap. I wish baseball had the salary cap. I mean, as a Yankees fan, I guess not, but I like it because it allows every fan to feel like their team can have a chance.
But you also can't forget about Joey Bosa. He's injury prone. He only played in 12 games last year. He did play in 16 the year before that. Oh no, I'm saying wrong.
No. He had
16. I'm looking at it wrong. I'm sorry.
Reverse.
He played 16 games last year.
Last year,
the year before that, he only played 7. Then he played 16 before that, and then he only played 12 in his rookie year.
Well, that's like in football, yeah. So in football too, it's even more risky because football, a player's out. So now you got this guy who you pay $27 million. If he gets injured, and now you have 2 other guys who are only making $1 million each to compensate for his $27 million contract, right? And then now you have a backup for him, which is probably only going to make you forget about it. You're done. You're not going anyplace. So as I said, I'm not a big fan of give me a really good team, every player quality versus a couple of stars. I just don't get it. I just don't believe they do that much damage to take that much of a salary cap.
I want to counter that because I want to use an example. When the Jets played the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett kept on being blocked by Kelvin Beachum alone because they did not double team him. The presence Myles Garrett made in that game won them the game. Myles Garrett put pressure on the quarterback almost every play. Myles Garrett absolutely kept on getting past Kelvin Beachum.
What was his salary then and what's his salary now?
Well, now he's getting a lot of money.
That's the problem. So when he's not making... Yeah, listen. Joey Bosa making $8 to $10 million is worth every penny. But now I'm talking when you're making 27. So now Myles he got a huge contract extension. Another one, which I'm not really sure why, but he got a huge contract extension, right? I think he's 3rd or 4th on the top.
Well, he actually broke the record.
Yes.
Before, and then Joey Bosa just broke it.
Well, every new person's going to keep on breaking the record. But so now, all of a sudden, now you come talk to me now, if they're going to have to pay Myles Garrett, right? Okay. Well, now they're going to have to cut some players. So, the team's going to get weaker around him. And so now let's see what he does and then also as you got to figure is when the team gets weaker around you, the other team can focus in on Joey Bosa more, right? Because if let's say you have a very weak other side defensive end and a very weak tackle or whatever, now they're like, all right, well all we got to do is go after this guy. We can put 2-3 men on this guy because these guys just are not good at all. Whereas if you have 3 average to decent guys, you can't focus in on the 1 or 2 strong players. As I said, I always go back to Bill Belichick does not pay players. He wins Super Bowls. When they get too greedy, he says, bye-bye. And that's the appropriate strategy because so he wants to win Super Bowls. And that's how you win Super Bowls, by not overpaying players.
But I understand that, but I do think a dominant player does make a difference in the game.
It can make a difference listen, every once in a while it can make a difference for a game, but the question is season, and are you going to win a Super Bowl with this? The only person who I feel like that can really take it from, average to great or just to get you by is a quarterback. A quarterback has the ball. And to be fair, listen, a quarterback has the ball how many times in a game?
Every time the offense
takes
a snap,
he is in control, right? So he's touching the ball every single time, whether he's passing it off, right? He's making those decisions, whether he's making a pass, finding players open, even the run. He can do a quick lateral. He can make changes on the fly if he sees something. So he's constantly making decisions. The defensive end, right? He only every once in a while, if he breaks through, he makes a play. So he might make 5? How many plays is he going to make per game? He'll make some
5 plays.
5 plays. Now, obviously, if you're really good, I'm sure Joey Bosa, you got to be double teamed. So he's doing more than just a number. So you can't, to be fair to play, also devil's advocate and not to be bashing him because that's not fair either. I mean, he's creating such chaos, right? Because
he's having, instead of one player on the offensive line, now you have to double team him. Now that makes the other spots weak.
And he still
gets 10 sacks. So
it's not that he's not a great player. And I have no problem with his contract. I just wouldn't want that on my team. It's good for you on your team. I want to win a Super Bowl as a fan and as a Jets fan who we pretty much think all the time. And we've always given out these big contracts. We finally have a general manager who is hopefully not going to give out these big, massive contracts. I want to win a Super Bowl. I don't need the jersey with the individual player. fantasy football, I guess it's a little different story when you're
I play
focusing.
fantasy football.
Yeah, so I don't play fantasy football. So
Well, there's no defense. It's only a team defense. It's not a player.
yeah, well, you're asking. I'm not a fantasy football guy, so I'm an older generation. Yeah, I just don't like fantasy football. I like rooting for teams rather than individual players. But
I love fantasy football.
yeah, that's fine. So that's our podcast. I mean, as I said, so I know a lot of people say, well, he's worth it. I say, yes, he is worth the contract as long as you don't want to win a Super Bowl.
If you want to suck,
But
pay him.
you won't still listen. They'll be good, but when in the playoffs, it's now you're playing the best players.
Quarterbacks is what changes the game, not edges.
Well, yeah, and it's the same quarterbacks always get there. Most of the time, the same teams get in with the same quarterbacks, and that's when they're duking it out, and that's when he might help him get into the playoffs, but is he going to take him from a playoff team to a Super Bowl? And I would disagree. And as a fan, as I said, my goal is Super Bowl.
Well, I do think they should have extended him. I think it was a very smart move to extend him.
Yes.
But I think it was a stupid move to pay him as much as they did.
Yeah, but
I think they should have. I think a reasonable. I think he deserves. I think he should have got like $20 million. I think that's a good contract for him.
So you want to make less than Myles Garrett?
Myles Garrett's also completely overpaid. I don't think he deserves it.
I know, but the problem is he's going to say no. I mean, he's going to say, wait a second.
$20 million. You think he's going to say $20 million?
Well, clearly, listen. He's going to say, well, okay, Myles Garrett is making X amount of money. I'm better than him, or I'm at least equal to him. You always want to be on top. So, there are very few players who are willing to take less money to be on a team or whatever. I don't believe there are too many players that do that. I mean, we always talk about it as fans. Oh, he should take less because he plays for our team. No. No. Listen,
They care about money.
Well, wouldn't you? I don't disagree with him for taking the money. I mean, listen,
Smart move by him.
Yeah, I mean, football is going to give him 10, 12 years. Take as much as he can get and get what he can get because that's really what's about. And he can get injured, and in the way football is, let's say he has a 5-year contract. He can get injured after 2 years, and then all of a sudden the team goes, well, all right, well, you're no good to me. We're going to cut you, and then he doesn't get his money. So I'm all for them going for as much money as possible. And as I said, I don't have a problem with it, and I get why the owners do it. Just as a fan, I don't want that on my team.
All right.
So anything else you want to say before we
No,
wrap
I'm
it up?
good. I think that I got out everything I wanted to get out.
So, all right. So this is a sports
Chat.
Oh, you want to go? Go ahead.
I was going to do the outro, but here you go.
No, go
Whatever.
ahead.
This is Sports Chat with the Lefties. If you enjoyed today's podcast, like and subscribe, and comment down below ideas for topics for our future podcasts.